We open with the origin story and how from the darkest moment, the point of blackness and void, is where the Encanto, the enchantment or magic, is born. The central point of the home is where the mandala is formed, a symbol of the self. It is joined by the butterfly and the candle, all representing how birth and fertility spawns from death and extinction. It is the coming of a new axis point, a unifying home for a family and their upcoming journey. But the magic can only be born through the individual, and the resulting fruits are always products of the single person and the impact they have on the surrounding community. And although Abuela Alma was the one who relit the eternal flame, leading to the town's regeneration, the light is beginning to die out as she has sought to possess the flame for her own selfish needs. Each family member has been given a gift to enhance the power of the unit, but it is evident that the power or gift has become the central focus. The magic's ability to maintain the group has come at the expense of each individual and their intrinsic nature, leading to a rupture and a move away from that which gives vitality and strength. We are introduced to the primary character of Mirabel, keen to point out the amazing qualities and abilities of her family while looking past what she possesses in herself. It is apparent that Abuela is in charge of the show, directing each person to continue serving the group unit. All actions are directed at preserving the long-standing casita and familia, while looking past the needs and cares of each individual person's livelihood. Mirabel wants to help in the same fashion as her family members, but she has not been awarded a gift, a recognition that is bestowed by an arbitrary external authority. Due to this perceived failure, she feels ineffectual and useless, as if she is different from those around her. She is an outcast and believes that she does not belong. Everyone says that she is getting in the way of their goals, and so she has begun to believe that she is a hindrance to the family. As the party for Antonio approaches, Abuela is uninterested in Mirabel's presence at the event, as she would only serve as a reminder for past failures. Alma wants to move past the night when Mirabel was denied her gift, desiring to ignore this imperfection. It is of utmost importance that plans continue to move on without issue, as the dictating grandmother must see that all follow her preconceived notions of how the night should transpire. It soon becomes evident that Mirabel has little concerns for her own needs and has become more invested in taking care of the family's ego. She has become a peacekeeper by constantly biting her own tongue in favor of the group. It's as if there is no room for her. She is unable to fit in, while the rest are trying to maintain their image and defend against any possible change. On the night of the party, Mirabel helps Antonio to his door, and we see extreme anxiety and tension within all members of the ceremony. The resistance to change and uncertainty is obvious. Dwelling within the unconscious of each person is the knowledge that another failed door will prove the existence of a problem. They have all become reliant on external indicators of cracks within the system, unable to pay attention to underlying emotions which could help identify the issues much sooner. Antonio is bestowed his gift, and the family take a group photo without Mirabel. It is a representation of the family's neglect of each person as an individual. The message is clear. Unless you fit into the group and follow along with the dictates provided, you are not accepted and are instead rejected. And although this is hard for Mirabel to acknowledge, it may also be her saving grace. Her inability to conform and follow along with the old tradition causes her alienation from the family, but also provides her a route to personal liberation. The rest of the family have relied on the personal gatekeeper in Abuela to tell them why they are important, whereas Mirabel is being provided the opportunity to realize her importance on her own terms. She is no longer willing to wait for someone to tell her how to live her life, and is instead preparing to find meaning in her own way. Immediately after, she becomes determined to chart her own course. Mirabel begins seeing cracks in the house, and the flame of the candle seemingly starts to fade out. And although no one else sees it, we can understand this as Mirabel's ability to perceive that which others are unable or unwilling to view. As the rest are being controlled by outer dictates, she is the only one able to pay attention to the inner feeling or call, understanding what is at stake without obvious outward signs. We are realizing that Mirabel is the hero. She is the one who is needing to break free from the group mentality and find a new route which is only her own. The family proceeds to ignore her warnings and go on with the party as if all is fine. It is reminiscent of what occurs within many family and group units, in which deeper problems are ignored in service of not disturbing the status quo. Mirabel is restless at night and begins her quest for answers as she chances upon her grandmother speaking out a window. She is asking her dead husband to show her a way, a prayer to some omnipresent authority which is expected to guide her in the right direction. Despite being the authority herself, she is frightened as she relies on her own external authorities for answers. But the path cannot be determined from the outside. It must come from insights within the individual, and these will remain latent as long as Alma is too focused on control and dominance as a way to avoid hurt for herself and her loved ones. Our newfound hero soon speaks to her sister Luisa, who is beginning to suffer from cracks in her armor, as she has upheld her tough exterior image for too long. Mirabel reveals some of her empathetic and therapeutic nature, as she gently hints towards symptoms resulting from Luisa's need for always being strong. She is able to see the ways that a constantly heavy load is unsustainable and leading towards a breakdown of the persona. Luisa is one of the many family members whose need to disguise, playing so strictly into their rigid role, is leaving little room for a normal type of existence. The need to conform to group expectations through constraint and restriction is all that matters. Luisa finally breaks down and admits to her inner weakness, becoming a blubbering fool for the rest of the film. Meanwhile, it seems that Mirabel has an acute skill in perceiving the inner lives of those around her. The adventure is pushed further, and Mirabel is led to finally inquire about her uncle Bruno and learn about his mysterious disappearance, which in actuality was an excommunication. It seems that everyone was afraid of his futuristic visions, of his ability to see the changing nature of events and possible consequences of particular actions. But as opposed to taking these visions as helpful or instructive, the family and surrounding community saw him as possessed and demonic. Rather than realize their own part to play, they again resorted to blaming an external factor for whatever misfortune came to pass. Bruno became the scapegoat for all who wanted to avoid taking responsibility for their life and any misfortune that may occur. Just as each family member looked to external authority to favor them by bestowing gifts, they equally viewed external events and people as a reason for their despair. All situations point to the outer world, shifting all responsibility from the center of the individual and the possible autonomy that they could develop otherwise. Not long after, the family is preparing for Isabella's proposal, and everyone is attempting to cover up the literal and figurative cracks. They act as if all is well, forcing the events to transpire unnaturally and in a grotesque manner. But appearances are beginning to fail, and none of them can uphold the charade, as a proposal is ruined following a series of disasters, and as they are all apt to shift blame from themselves, Mirabel has become the new one to blame. She has become the replacement for the exiled Bruno, another pressing reason for her to continue her journey before she meets the same fate as her uncle. We are introduced to Bruno, who is a shell of a man, someone who has lost his way and nearly lost his mind. He has become an outcast and a recluse, unaware of himself and his erratic ways. He is someone who is driven to this existence as his family could not understand him. Being different from the rest and seeing things which they couldn't fathom, he was unable to communicate his message, resulting in a lack of trust in himself and his own abilities. It all resulted in a psychosis, which was not the consequence of his mind's operations, but rather a result of the family's rejection of his individuality. No longer could his mind function soundly, as the clarity of his visions meant nothing in relation to the group's social norms. And although he is ready to continue his impoverished existence, Mirabel knows that he needs to trust himself again by pushing his visions further. The only way forward is to believe once again in the power of the individual's sight and its value to the community, to stray away from the ruling power which places all value on group conformity. This applies to both Bruno and Mirabel, as they must both determine for themselves how they fit into the overall scheme, rather than being told how they fit in. Bruno's visions lead Mirabel to her sister Isabel, leading the rose-bearer to make an unexpected statement about marrying out of the family's pressure. Isabel's profound insight is a spontaneous product of pure being, something diametrically opposed to her perfectly posed attempts at appearance. Mirabel again helps a family member see through their persona and deeper into their essential nature. Isabella's name can literally be translated to be beautiful, something which fits her lifelong attempts at show. In the same vein, it's no surprise that Mirabel's name can be translated to see the beauty, seeing into each person's essence and viewing the blessedness that resides under the surface. She is the one who sees the glory and radiance of people and things, the product of an unfolding and blossoming life, not a planned out and well-preserved chain of commands. The sisters come together, but the old authority is still at the helm and demands that they cease all spontaneous and thereby dangerous acts. Abuela is absolute in her control and demands things to remain as is, but Mirabel is no longer listening to the dictates of the group, as she has come to be guided by her own inner authority. She stands up to the matriarch and makes it clear that everyone is only living in order to follow instructions. She demands change from the old, worn-out ways, as she knows the control of the past is what is creating the cracks. It is the climax of the plot, as there is now a clear distinction between the old ruling order and the new paradigm that must come into being. Mirabel makes the best effort to save the candle's flame, but it was already fated to be extinguished. The candle, or the living vitality, must be replaced by something new and fresh. Mirabel leaves to sit beside the life-sustaining waters of the river and is told the story of her abuela's past and the creation of the house. She learns that the grandmother's choices were spurred on from pain and suffering, by attempts to resist past agonies again in the future. Her intentions were always for the best, but they ultimately led to rigidity and extreme control to serve self-protection. Although the group and town flourished via her actions, it came at the expense of each individual's creative and dynamic nature. By trying to protect everyone, she became smothering and prevented each person from testing their own capabilities. The telling of the story assists Mirabel in seeing her grandmother's anguish and the motivations behind her actions. They embrace each other, and it symbolizes the ushering out of the old ways and the bringing in of something better. Instead of a split between two ages, there is a joining between the parts for the creation of something greater. Each side comes to understand their place in the order. The true prophecy is fulfilled, and the couple becomes engulfed within a sea of butterflies who have emerged from their cocoons, moving towards the lives of mature adults. The story culminates with the family coming to see that when the individual is subjugated to the group ideal, it will often lead to corruption and decay. Each one's gift cannot be the sole focus for existence. The entire personality must be fostered. Utility must come as a secondary concern, whereas the development of uniqueness must be favored so that each can contribute in their own specific way. The group or family has become a hindrance to the growth process. Only the individual can know how they are to develop and contribute, something which can allow each member to no longer be a misaligned part. As they enter the new foundational schema, the doors which were once focused on each person's ego have now become converted into planks of cosmic stars, symbolizing the harmonious luminescence that rotate the sky in unison. At the same time, the front door has been converted to a picture of the entire family, with Mirabel in the center of the unit. She is the living and growing individual which the family and group revolve around and are thus powered by. Through realizing her own abilities and strengths, she has brought the family together stronger and solidified the ground floor of their everyday being. This concludes the psychology of Encanto. Please watch my other videos and other TV and film characters if you enjoyed this one. Thank you for watching.